So, you're thinking about buying an electric car. A lot of experts believe the tipping point is coming soon. One reason? Vehicles like this, the Ford Mustang Mach-E. It's racking up awards. It's quick and fun to drive, practical for family duty too. The Mustang branding might be controversial, but things could be a whole lot worse. There was the Mustang too in the 1970s.
Yes, I've already profiled the Mach-E. I attended a press event in Los Angeles where I experienced the car for all of 5 hours. But in that short time, I found it to be very impressive. So I asked Ford to loan me one for a whole week so I could really shake it down and find out what it's like to live with.
While I covered a lot of stuff in the first video, and I suggest that you check it out for details, there were so many things that I couldn't test. Charging, real-world range, the ease, or lack of, when it comes to the user interface, and how much TP fits into the trunk. This is a deep dive, starting with cliff notes on the powertrain. Mach-E can be had with 2 battery sizes and a choice of single and dual motor configurations. Horsepower is 266, 290, or 346 depending on battery size and whether it's rear or all-wheel drive. The EPA estimated range spans from a high of 300 miles to a low of 211 for the car that I'm driving. Finally, its max charging rate is 150 kilowatts, which is fast, but not the fastest. Switch it on, and you're really not going to hear anything. There are drive modes that make a difference in the throttle response and steering. There is no gearbox, so transmission mapping isn't a thing. Unbridled is basically a sport mode. The regeneration drag rate can be set to high or low here. Mach-E is very aerodynamic, especially for a crossover. Its coefficient of drag is below 0.30. Ford's a little cagey on the exact number, but it's low. The underbody has nothing for the wind to hang on to. This particular car has the standard range 68 kilowatt-hour floor-mounted battery and all-wheel drive, so it does have the shortest range. With ground clearance at 5.8 inches and all-season tires, it's not something that I'd off-road.
Mach-E comes with a key, of course, but you really don't need it because there's also phone as key technology. And a lot of people are wondering, what happens if your phone goes dead? Easy. There's a keypad here on the B pillar. Put in your personal code and then another code in the center screen. I suggest not using 1, 2, 3, 4, otherwise your car's going to be gone.
Ford provided a connected phone so I could try it out. It's seamless. The app allows the car to be started remotely to heat or cool the cabin using household current if it's plugged in, helping to increase the range. All right, let's drive.
In boost mode, the Audi e-tron will do the 0 to 60 dash in about 5.5 seconds. The Mach-E is just a smidge quicker.
And the power is available all the time. No boost mode needed.
And I've said it before, I'll say it again, all-wheel drive is not just for snow, it gives that extra grip on wet pavement like today.
The disadvantage? It lowers efficiency by about 10% compared to rear drive. This dual-motor Mach-E has the standard battery pack setup. It's EPA rated at 211 miles. Remember that number.
With just a little bit of anticipation, it's pretty easy to drive the Mach-E with one pedal, foot off the throttle at 30 miles an hour. Let's check the coast down. And stop. The transition from regenerative braking to the actual physical disc brakes when it comes to the pedal feel is excellent in this vehicle. All right, real world range. It's been kind of cold here, average around 40 degrees, and I took it on a highway trip, average speed around 70 miles an hour. These are conditions that EVs don't particularly like.
Here's what happened. I needed a new pair of running shoes. The Nike outlet in Centralia, Washington is 92 miles from my house. A great test. Starting out, the computer said a round trip was not possible since it looks at past driving style and the current temperature that was just above freezing. After a half an hour of driving, the computer recalculated for conditions and estimated a round trip was actually possible with 4 or 5 miles to spare, even after stopping at one of our favorite burger places. But not wanting to make my camera-shy wife nervous, I topped off at an Electrify America station in Olympia, conveniently located just steps away from a Joann's fabric store. Remember, the rate of charge with EVs is much faster when the pack is nearly spent and usually slows as it fills, throttling down hard when hitting 80%. Starting at 38%, it never hit the 150 kilowatt rate that the station could provide. The best that I saw was 75 kilowatts. Compared to the rated 211 miles in ideal conditions, my estimated range of 190 in cold temperatures and highway driving is impressive. For comparison, Edmunds tested the dual-motor extended pack model at 62 degrees, and it exceeded the EPA estimate of 270 miles, reaching 304. Putting the Mustang logo on the Mach-E means it needs to have a certain amount of performance, and while I feel Mustangs should be two-door coupes, I'll admit this car delivers driving fun.
Mach-E handles really well. Toss it into a corner and it's very confident. Does feel kind of heavy though, and if you want exceptional handling, wait for the GT. It'll have better tires and a reworked suspension.
Performance rubber plus more power will mean a lower range. That's just physics, folks. Mach-E's suspension is on the firm side of comfortable, and it's quiet, though not as hushed as the Audi. The small amount of performance sound added in unbridled mode is kind of subtle, nothing like a fake V8. Another difference from traditional Mustangs is the giant screen.
No doubt big screens look great, but there is kind of an advantage to having a couple smaller ones. It allows you to anchor your thumb and then push the button. When you have this big screen, you really can't do that, and the car vibrates. And so it's easier to kind of miss.
Visibility is pretty good, and there's a solid suite of standard active electronic safety tech that Ford calls Co-Pilot 362 that includes automatic emergency braking and a good lane keep system. This car has the hardware for active drive assist, which is much like the terrific General Motors Super Cruise. The over-the-air software update will cost $600 when available later in 2021, and that's a bargain if it's as good as Super Cruise.
One thing I'll say about one-pedal driving, there are some drivers that don't do it very well, and it makes their passengers carsick. So watch the person sitting next to you if you're driving with one pedal. You know, don't jerk, don't do that, all right? They're gonna barf in your nice car.
Speaking of, in my first piece with the Mach-E, it was my opinion that the space gray interior, which actually looks white, was not up to the standards of a car that's over $50,000. In black onyx, it appears much richer to my eye, though brushed aluminum would look so much richer than the obviously fake carbon fiber stuff. Maybe the aftermarket will rectify that. Leather is not available. The ActiveX seats are comfortable and breathable, plus your vegan friends will be happy. The cockpit is fairly open, though the console definitely divides things. Storage is good. The center area is very flexible and looks like a good-sized purse or backpack would fit here with the armrest up. There is no sunshade. The glass that doesn't open is treated to keep heat down. Not an issue where I live.
There are no traditional door handles, and for some reason, there are people that are really freaked out about these. Honestly, they're very natural to use. Really. And the back here, there's a big rubber area. It's like a big door grab. This car was developed in Michigan. They know all about the icy conditions that can mess these kind of doors up. Sort of like we in the Pacific Northwest know about rain.
After a half hour of nosing around, I was completely at home with the Sync 4A interface. This is a standard iPad for reference. Pretty big, huh? The touch response is excellent and the layout is intuitive. I never reached for the owner's manual. It can be set up so that the main menu pages are arranged vertically close to the driver. The navigation system will guide you to the closest charge stations. More about that in a minute. I like that, in addition to the screen, there are the right amount of hard buttons for the things that are used the most often. The HVAC controls are very low. That does take eyes off the road. The volume knob for the solid Bang & Olufsen sound system feels a little cheap. There are always the steering wheel controls if that bothers you. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are standard and wireless. Partnering with Shell's Green Lots, the Blue Oval folks created the FordPass Charging Network, claiming 13,500 stations with over 40,000 plugs in North America. It wrangles a number of networks like Electrify America, ChargePoint, and EVgo, and treats them as one, offering simple plug-and-charge operation with easy billing. Does it work? I plugged into a Redmond, Washington Electrify America station to see what happens.
All right, let's give this a go. I've actually had some issues with Electrify America being a little bit fussy, so this is a really good test.
The station should just recognize the car and start charging. No app needed.
Okay, it's thinking. It's thinking. It's thinking. Oh, it worked. That's much, much easier than I've experienced in the past.
Time to buy some socks and underwear while it charges. It's wise to check ahead on the app to see if chargers are occupied or not working, which I've experienced more than once. Overall, the charging network is improving in America, but I'd be lying if I said everything is perfect. And for those living in rural areas, there's little to no support. For now, the infrastructure focus is along the interstates.
Thing is, if you're going to buy an electric vehicle, you're going to want the convenience of charging at home, and it's much less expensive.
It can easily cost 4 times more to charge at commercial stations, so for most people, these will be used for road trips. Electrify America is just one network.
Next, let's try EVgo.
And cue the sad trombone sound. Ford tells me it should plug and charge here, but this particular location is not cooperating, and that happened at the Olympia charge station. One terminal didn't recognize the car, but a second one did. Neither I or Ford could figure it out.
It's not that I can't charge here. I could if I used my own EVgo card or a credit card. Kind of defeats the purpose.
As it all gets sorted out, I suggest having dedicated accounts at all the major players.
You didn't come to the Los Angeles event. Why? I had plenty of frequent flyer mileage.
Well, 3 words for you. No fly list.
Got it. Yeah, well, now that I've had a chance to check out the Mach-E's back seat, I can tell you that we're both 5'9", head, knee, leg, and foot room all very generous. Cushions are high enough. Thigh support is excellent. The door openings are big enough so that car seats go in and out. Not much of a problem there. Door pockets, those are actually pretty large. Nice. There is no separate climate zone, though I can charge my phone. You know me in back seat pockets, glad there are 2 of them. Check out the floor, pretty darn flat. That means if you have 3 adults back here, and that's entirely possible, feet won't get crowded. This is a roomy space. Great for a family.
I will point out that the sloping back end is disguised a bit. Your eye doesn't really see the raised black section as much as the raked fly line. This is not a traditional SUV crossover silhouette.
The roofline of the Mach-E is very similar to the Audi e-tron Sportback, which holds 7 packs of my measurement metric. Brought out 8 just in case.
The floor has 2 levels to it if you want room to stash valuables underneath. There is no spare tire here, just a repair kit and the supplied charge cord. Small things make the space more usable. The fabric security shade doesn't need to be left at home. There are no remote releases. It's a moderate reach in to drop the seats. No ski pass-through or 40-20-40 split seats, if that's important to you. Raise the floor and the cargo area would be flat. With it in the lower position, Mach-E can handle a lot of hauling, tying the e-tron Sportback with 7 packs of the 2-ply. And this being an EV, there's a frunk where I put all of my shopping. There's a divider in here that helps to keep things from sliding around. It can't be removed easily. Unlike regular hoods, this is sealed like the doors and trunk to keep the elements out, and it can be filled with ice and used as a cooler for front gate parties, I guess you'd call it here. There's a drain plug so water doesn't slosh around. I think that pretty much covers the Mustang Mach-E. Let's go to red light, green light to see if my feelings have changed from the press event. Green light. The Mach-E's range is pretty much as promised even during cold highway conditions. The rear-drive extended range pack model should easily get over 300 miles in moderate temperatures. Driving dynamics are engaging, and this isn't even the GT. The interface uses the right amount of physical controls to go with the expansive touchscreen, and fully loaded with the extended range pack and all-wheel drive, MSRP is under $50,000 after the $7,500 federal tax credit. Yellow lights? The FordPass Charging Network is brilliant, but seems like kinks need to be worked out. In black, the interior has a higher quality vibe, but my eye is still drawn to that fake carbon fiber trim, and the big glass roof is appreciated, but there's no shade if Old Soul is bugging you. Red light. Ford positions this as a crossover, but with less than 6 inches of ground clearance, it's not a Bronco or even an Escape. Got that? I think the Mach-E name is smart. Mustang? I might need therapy to work through that. Charging is kind of quick, but not as fast as Audi e-tron or Tesla Model Y for those who travel a lot. The more time I spend with the Mach-E, the more I like the styling. I still prefer the nose of the GT though. The first wave of owners will be answering a lot of questions. It rivals the attention the Chevy C8 Corvette and Genesis GV80 saw. But most important, it's a very well done car with excellent build quality and a reasonable price for a long-range EV. And it works for families. Mach-E occupies the sweet spot within Tesla Model Y, Audi e-tron, and Jaguar I-Pace. The Ford strikes a good balance. If EVs are approaching the tipping point, the Mustang Mach-E will play a large part in nudging a lot of people towards zero emissions and a whole lot of fun. Let's not forget that EVs have far fewer moving parts and should require a lot less maintenance, no oil changes for example, and with aggressive regeneration while braking, pads and rotors should last longer. I'll post a good calculator in the story description so you can estimate the cost savings of charging an EV over fueling a gas vehicle.
I often say that I am a one-man operation, but obviously I can't shoot and drive at the same time. So everybody, give it up for Martin Campbell, the one and only. He is awesome. Thanks, Martin.
You're welcome.
It's very early on Sunday, and it's Super Bowl Sunday, and here we are, working.
As much as I like EVs, they're not for everyone, and I believe you need to be able to charge at home to own one. I'm also adamant, people that haven't driven them don't understand that 400 miles of range isn't needed for the most part. If you're on the fence, keep a record of days that you drive, say, over 150 miles. And even when charging is on the slow side, it's amazing how time flies if you get a snack, watch a show on your phone, or do some video editing like I did at this free charging station I found near my house. And charging at home means no trip to the gas stations in the cold and rain and snow.
This is the end where I normally leave you with a fun fact, but this week let's talk about the big controversy, the Mustang name. I understand why purists are upset. This has 4 doors, an SUV-like utility. But I also know why Ford wants to use the branding, because there's a certain amount of performance happening here. The armchair marketing guy in me would have used the Mach-E name and the Mustang-esque styling, and then just leave it at that. Let the Mustang essence speak for itself. But I'm not privy to all of the information that the Ford marketing people have, and besides, they've certainly used worse names in the past, right? Ford Probe? Not exactly elegant. All right, time for me to go, because I pride myself in being short and to the point and yet thorough. Thanks for watching. That's Driven. I'm Tom Voelk.